Hello, I'm Jorian Murray, and welcome to Good Things Happen, the show that invites changemakers and enablers to share their inspiring stories of progress. Whilst change can be uncomfortable, unexpected, and at times disruptive, it's inevitable, and more often than not, change is for good. We'll be hearing from people from all walks of life who have been at the forefront of change, including their journeys to get there and their motivations. Because when people work together for a common cause, good things happen.
Without a consumer, you have no product. When you give customers something engaging and high quality, they will reward you by giving their precious attention to you.
I am a big fan of the insight. Very hard to define, very hard to find, but my goodness, when you do, wonderful things generally happen afterwards.
Like the majority of industries, the world of marketing has been fundamentally disrupted by the digital revolution. Change has largely been good for consumers as businesses mercifully refrain from talking at us or telling us what to think, do or buy. In an age of almost limitless choice, brands have responded to become purpose-driven. They share their values and missions with an ambition to engage and connect more deeply with their audiences. Mass media is no longer the message. Content is indeed king. More empathetic marketing strategies require brands to have insights and understanding of their customers more than ever before. On today's Good Things Happen, we'll explore how easy it is to achieve this. I'm joined by two marketers at the top of their game to help. Lucy Farey-Jones is founder of Register, a San Francisco-based tech specialist marketing agency that provides business and brands with strategy for scale. Lucy is joined by Alex Craddock, Citi's almost brand new Chief Marketing and Content Officer. Welcome, Lucy and Alex. It's wonderful to have you with us. I always like to start by hearing your stories. When did marketing become your thing? Lucy, were you conducting focus groups at preschool?
Probably around what snack I could trade for my radish. My mother used to pack these radishes and I'd try and trade them to unsuspecting toddlers. I actually ended up in marketing because a very kind friend of mine at university had an older brother who was visiting and who said, "Oh, you have the kind of mind that would be good in marketing." Because I sort of have a left brain, right brain thing going on. I was an English major, but I also a huge fan of math and logic. So yeah, I was very lucky. I was pointed at it by somebody much smarter than me at the time, and then got, a graduate trainee job, and off I went.
I'm flying ever since. How about you, Alex? Did you enjoy the ads more than the kids' TV programs?
Hey, for sure. So, Jorian, great to be here. Thank you so much. And look, I think, yes, definitely the ads when I were a kid, where they were like appointment viewing. They were fantastic back in the UK. So I guess I was always interested in the world of advertising just because it was, that exciting break in the shows that you used to engage with. But I actually got into marketing by accident. I was a business development guy in the automotive world, and I thought it would be really helpful of me to criticize the brand and the state of marketing at the company I was working at. And everybody agreed, including the CEO, who next day said, "You were dead right, and we'd love you to fix this." So that was how I got into marketing. But I loved it ever since. I mean, I realized after my 6 months of vertical learning that it's an amazing discipline, and I realized very quickly that as a biz dev person, I was influencing individuals one by one in terms of perception and behavior. Suddenly in marketing, I was able to influence millions in terms of perception and behavior, and over time start to see how that was actually impacting our sales and ultimately our bottom line. And I was then completely bought in, and I've been doing it ever since and loved every minute of it.
So today's topic, Lucy, is understanding consumers, which, for many brands that I look at seems a bit of a cliche. We put our clients first, we put our people first. How important is the consumer in the whole marketing thing?
Huge. Obviously, without a consumer, you have no product. And actually, I think the brands that are doing really well in this digital era are those who have taken that pause and gone, okay, what's my actual benefit to the consumer? Like really coming at it from their lens versus, sometimes the people who make the product aren't the right people to talk about why it sells. So Absolutely. To me, understanding consumer desire and tapping into that, especially on a more emotional level, is fundamentally critical to how you cut through in this era where, frankly, it's an opt-out world now. Customers cannot receive any messages if they don't want them from your brand. So yeah, we're looking for that piece of information that's going to make them seek you out versus block you out.
Alex, tell us from a Citi point of view, how do you approach this?
Look, I mean, I think it's essential to Lucy's point. I think in a crowded world, not just of many competitors seemingly offering the same thing, but also in a crowded world in terms of content that's vying for our attention, and not just branded content. It's all of the content that we're all creating ourselves. And I think if you're trying to cut through and get someone to engage with your content, you've got to make sure that you're meeting their needs. And I think you've got to think about that in different ways. I don't think it's just functional needs anymore. I think there are emotional needs, and I think there are social needs, and I think therefore, as marketers, we have to make sure that we're producing content that is irrelevant across those three dimensions. That's the only way we're going to really be getting the engagement that we need, and hopefully the behavioral change that will come after it. So it's a huge part of what we do at Citi. I think what's exciting here is we have a lot of bankers who have great one-on-one relationships, and they're a great source of insight. But I think when we're speaking to millions of clients around the world, we've got to be using the data and the analytics that we have to truly understand what our clients are actually interested in and the ways that they want to be engaged, and we've got to be using that all the time. So I'd say if we weren't thinking about this, we wouldn't be able to do our jobs.
Lucy, tell us about some of the tools, technologies, techniques that you would use to understand consumers or better understand their needs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's funny, like I've been doing this for many years. And I obviously am a fan of the focus group. I still believe in the focus group. I was skeptical initially about online focus groups, but I've decided I'm going to go with it. And as long as people are on camera, I can still read their body language, because as Alex knows, that a lot of what the findings are in focus groups are often unsaid things, and people not saying certain things, or awkward pauses and side glances. And so a huge fan of those. But obviously with the digital world, what's super interesting is data now is everywhere. And obviously there's a massive amount of quantitative data you can mine. And, you can figure out through A/B testing which of your banner lines is, the most impactful. And that's cool. What we love at Register is we call it micro-qual, meaning actually when you look around, there's a lot of free data. The other things that we've done is you can actually engage now with all these chatbots. You can get to a human pretty fast, and you can engage with the sales division of a company. And that also gives you very valuable data on how they treat their customers and what their current messaging in the market is. Nice little micro-qual moments. And then one thing I wanted to just add on this subject is I was lucky enough to be at the AI conference in San Francisco 2 weeks ago, and the big word of the day there was agentic, meaning agent, AI. So in the world where we're all going to have our own personal travel agent in the form of an AI bot that I'll say, hey, travel agent, please book me a ticket to go see Alex in New York, and it will just happen magically and appear on my calendar. And in that world, it's super interesting to think about how ultimately you may not even have a customer visiting your website anymore. So you may have to think about your relationship with the AI bot versus the end customer, which I find I haven't got my head around that part of the research challenge yet, but that's coming apparently. So what does that mean for websites when the customer doesn't come to your site at all? Sorry, I don't have the answer to that part.
Not yet. Part two. Alex, I mentioned in my introduction that you're relatively new to Citi. Tell us about what drew you to Citi, and being new to the business, how do you get your head around your customers at such a big business?
Yeah, so look, there's several things that drew me to Citi. I mean, it's an iconic brand, and I don't use the word iconic very often, but I do think Citi is one of these incredible iconic brands in the world. It's been around for 200 years plus. Its history is phenomenal. It's woven into the development of the US as a country. It's woven into global commerce and therefore globalization. It enabled that over many decades. So I think there's just this incredible history and just iconic value that sits behind the brand that obviously as a marketer you couldn't help but be excited about. But I think, beyond that, I was very excited by the transformation that's taking place at the bank. I think, under Jane Fraser's leadership with her executive management team, there's a lot that is happening here to make sure that the bank is fit to support the needs of its clients and is very focused on doing what it must do rather than all the things it could do. And I think it's impressive when a big organization consciously makes the decision to do that, because it's hard, as you know, to say we don't want to do certain things. Everybody, especially big companies, want to try and do everything. But I think the big, bold decisions and the transformation that has taken place here makes it an incredibly exciting place to be. And I think, the stage at the firm is in with that transformation made it the right time for a new chief marketing and content officer to step in, because the business strategy was defined, the business structures had been defined. It was now the right time for marketing to come in and really add value. And I was very excited to take on that role. So that's a lot of why I came here. How have I got my arms around our business and our clients? I'm still working on that. Honestly, it's an incredible platform, an incredible firm with a lot of clients across a lot of different segments. I mean, we have a big retail bank here in the US. We have a huge wealth business globally. We're serving many institutional clients of all different sizes around the world. We're present in 95 countries around the world. So it's going to take me, unfortunately, a little longer than 6 months to get my arms around that. But look, we have a lot of great data, as you can imagine, both primary data, but also secondary and tertiary data that we can pull from. We have great teams of analysts who are working with that data and turning it into findings, insights, things you can actually work with. So obviously I've been sitting down with that on the marketing side, but also the sales side as well. I think Lucy mentioned the power of sales and CRM tools and what you can glean from those day-to-day conversations that salespeople are having, and there's a real richness in what actually a client is thinking about. And I think in the world we live in today, where nothing seems to be the same for longer than a few hours, that real-time input from CRM can be invaluable. I learned that in my previous role at BlackRock. I wanted to find out what people were thinking about the world of investing, and particularly the brand that I was looking after at the time. I've done a lot of my homework, sort of sitting and looking at the platforms and what people are saying, not just about Citi, but banking in general, and the different aspects of banking and what they're looking for. So I think those have been great sources for me. We obviously have a lot of studies. I am like Lucy. I'm a big believer in the focus group. I'm a big believer in the individual interviews. I think you can get a huge amount of value out of those, particularly when you start to triangulate what you're getting across various different samples. So I've done a lot of reading, and I love sitting and doing a lot of reading and trying to synthesize my own insights from those. And then I think, as we stepped into starting to do some things differently, the test and learn, honestly, is the most powerful way of telling you whether you're getting it right, you're getting it wrong. And you can learn so much through that process. And I think as long as you're willing to iterate fast, when you do get a piece of insight that says, look, this is not quite right, or you could get more value out of it if you did it this way, then that can be incredibly useful too. And I think that's a muscle that we're seeking to learn and build here in the marketing function now, so we can really, get some quick insights from the data we've got, but quickly into market with something that we can test and learn and iterate around. So that's what I've been doing, but I have a lot to learn, to be totally honest. Huge amount I've got to get my arms around here.
Lucy, you mentioned AI, and I'd love for you to share your recent experience and pre-COVID experience of your pre and post AI tech study.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by AI, and as I said earlier, I'm an English major, so I really have no right to be. I certainly wouldn't know how to code one or anything like that. But I am really interested in what makes people adopt or reject new technologies, and AI is just that, right? And so back in 2019, I ran a study just here in the US, but it was quite robust. It was like 1,400 people, and it was representative of the the general population. I made sure that it wasn't just techies in San Francisco. I was like out to the country, and I did it representing all generations. So I was able to cut the data by different generations and stuff like that. And it was cool because I looked at how comfortable people were with the idea of an AI robot blank. And I had 31 verticals, of which financial advisor was one actually. And other things like, I don't know, butler, dog walker, doctor, nurse, lawyer. And I was tracking people's comfort levels. And again, this stuff is not all here yet, but certainly it's close. And in 2019, it was as you'd expect. The millennials were pretty gung-ho about this, and the rest of us were like, well, I don't know. Men and women, very different, right? Men much more open to this stuff, especially things like driverless cars and, a brain AI interface. And I kind of blame Terminator for that. But yeah, so some marked differences generationally and then also with regard to the sexes. However, then COVID hit in 2020. And I think that really did change our relationship with technology. Personally, anyway, telemedicine became a thing. We were all leaning in and Zooming to our heart's content. And I think many segments of the economy became digitized. Digital transformation was forced in COVID, wasn't it? Anyway, and I thought, I can't really talk about post-COVID because it's still here, but when everyone who wanted a vaccination could get a vaccination, I decided it was time to field a post-study. So I asked exactly the same questions and was expecting to see, some leaps, but the data was off the charts. It's become way more, people are way more open to the idea of a robot or an AI assist in many aspects of their lives. And what I think the two things that I found most astonishing were the boomers had leapt to the same place as the millennials were before COVID. So there's a huge opportunity using AI to market to that very large segment of the population. And the other thing that was, there's many things, but just quickly, the other thing that was super interesting was Generation Z is more skeptical than you'd think. So as you'd imagine, each generation that comes is more open than the one before it, right? Because tech is sometimes adopted by the young people, except Gen Z is the first generation to break that trend. Because I think they've grown up with tech. They don't have that love affair with it because it's always been there. And I think they're in a little bit of a soul search around AI and what it means for them developing professions and going out in the real world. So that was astounding. That to see them dip below their elders in terms of excitement around this stuff was really fascinating.
Alex, how do you think the needs in the financial service industry has changed as a result of these technologies coming in? We've talked about how you get to understand your consumer as you're learning about them over the years in your previous job, in this job. How does the expectation and the need to deliver to them in a different way? How has that changed?
I think it's changed massively. I think if I think about just my time living in the US, which is 16 years now, when I arrived in 2008, I think the iPhone had literally just been launched. It was the hot new thing, and about 3 people had them, and they were the cool people because they had really embraced new technology. And I think about where we are now and how the way we interact with our device and the apps on those devices has absolutely changed our expectations as consumers in terms of highly personalized, highly curated experiences. And I say that because I think it's fantastic that this is the world we live in. I go on my phone and what I get is slightly different to the version that someone else gets, but it actually is really tailored to me. And I don't think those expectations change when you are engaging with brands off the device. I think people now are saying, look, if I'm giving you all my data, whether it's conscious or unconscious, I expect you to use that data to actually understand my needs and give an experience back to me that truly meets my needs. I want it to be personalized. I want it to be dynamic. I want it to be current. And I want it to be real time as well. I don't want, I am giving you data real time. I don't want to have to wait for something to feel like it's been understood. So I think, we operate in a world now where the expectation level is the highest it's ever been. And I don't think that's just retail consumer. I think that's also business to business decision makers too. And I think as marketers, I think we have to understand that therefore the space we are operating in is very, very different and I think operates to exactly the same rules wherever you are in your decision making process to your real life. And therefore, we've got to adapt to that. I think just building off the conversation around AI and Gen AI in particular, I think it does offer a huge promise of helping us address some of those needs a lot more real time and a lot more easily than maybe we've done up until now. But I think, we're sort of out of what I would call the hype phase of Gen AI, and we're now into the reality of it's actually hard to do, which again shouldn't be a surprise. Building the internet was hard to do. Getting a mobile device was hard to do. And it took time for those things to sort of mature and start to become parts of our everyday life. But I'm excited about Gen AI and the potential it offers in terms of the speed of data analysis and the ability to analyze huge amounts of data real time that can then be used in a dynamic way to inform a more personalized process. I think the ability to generate content real time, I think, is going to be a huge bonus as well. So I think we're stepping into sort of another era of significant change based on data and technology. I am excited by it, but I think it's probably going to be 3 to 5 years before we really feel the impact of that at scale in terms of marketing engagement. But I think, it's sort of beholden on us as marketers to jump in with both feet, a little bit like we did in the early days of digital marketing and social media. And we go, right, we don't know what it can do yet, but we need to figure out our playbook. And the only way we're going to figure out our playbook is if we're actually there, testing and learning and trying things out, and approaching it with an optimistic mindset, which is what I'm encouraging the team to do. But I'm very excited about where we are and the power that this is going to be able to bring to us over time.
Fascinating. Really, really interesting. Lucy, I can see you nodding along as Alex was speaking. Do you think marketing is more welcome in the lives of consumers? And back in the day, we literally used to interrupt their entertainment to send them messages. But is marketing welcome largely, or more welcome?
I think if you used the capital M marketing word, people would say no. But if you said, "Oh, did you like that?" people would say yes. So I think good marketing is welcome. It's funny because I grew up in England, and I would agree, Alex, that the advertising certainly in the 80s and the 90s was incredible in England. I mean, I left in 99. And, it was a huge part of why I wanted to go into marketing, because it was very creative, and it earned its right to interrupt you by and large. Like, it rewarded you with either funny or thought-provoking stuff. And then when I came to America, I noticed that not all advertising was of that same high caliber. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why is that? And I think it's because we have way more channels at that time. Anyway, we had way more channels, way more money, and I think a lot of marketing wasn't quite as enlightened as perhaps, or sophisticated as the English market. But now I'm seeing that changing, because I'm seeing that again we're in this opt-out world, so I can shut it down, and so I think American marketeers are realizing that actually you do have to earn your place at the table, and ideally you have the customer seek you out versus, put the message in front of them and blind hope that you'll get through. So, yeah, I guess I feel like the good stuff is still welcome. There is still, of course, sometimes my kids laugh at me because I'll start shouting at the television. I'll be like, "How did that get approved? Like, who put that through? Like, what were they thinking?" So there's still some stuff out there that you just go, "Really? You thought that was going to add value to someone's life?" But I know many people who tune in just for the ads, and long may that continue, I hope. I don't know, Alex, what do you think? I feel like
I love the fact that I'm not the only one shouting at television going, "How did this possibly get past a client?"
My kids and I, we always reenact like the presentation of like, "I've got this idea for you. Bear with me." It's like, oh God, someone should have said no.
Yeah, it's going to be this bad. What do you think? Sounds great. Let's make it. No, I agree fully with Lucy. I think it's beholden on us as the ecosystem that produces all that is called marketing in inverted commas, whether it's agencies or clients, to make sure that we recognize the fact that we should be putting out content that engages and that people want to engage with. We don't want to be boring them to death in an ad break or boring to death with a piece of content online. But I think what's exciting about the world we live in today, and if I reflect on my way too many decades in this career, marketing as a definition has changed so much that when you sort of ask the question, Lucy, do consumers want to be engaged by marketing or interrupted by marketing? I think, yes, they do. And I think there are still not just traditional marketing examples that get huge amount of engagement. I think if you look at things like Drive to Survive, which honestly is in my list of probably the best pieces of marketing I've ever seen in terms of turning around a sports franchise that had kind of lost its way. I then think about, the time spent on things like TikTok. I look at my kids, and I must admit, even myself sometimes, and, that's marketing. It's just not marketing as we grew up thinking about marketing. There's a lot of influencers on there who are choosing to talk about things that they care passionately about, and they're talking to people who are like-minded and probably share that particular interest, and they are marketing to us, but we don't feel like it's marketing. So I think we're in this sort of fascinating world where when you get it right and you fundamentally apply all of the great principles of great marketing, which frankly I don't think has ever really changed, but when you get it right, amazing things happen. And I think, that we now see in a much broader sense than we probably did in, 20, 30 years ago when we were sitting in front of the TV being entertained as kids in the UK. But I think it's an exciting time, and I think we all love marketing. It's just changed in terms of what it is.
I was just going to say, I'm building on Alex's point about quality. The fact is, when you give customers something, engaging and high quality, they will reward you by giving their precious attention to you. And I think, in this era where things have to be quicker and faster, sometimes the quality of the film isn't necessarily the thing. I think you still have to have a quality of insight. So you can execute cheaper and quicker, but I'm really a firm believer that doesn't mean that you leave insights at the door. Like you still have to bring it in terms of quality of thought and quality of positioning and all that stuff that sometimes I see a little bit going out the window to the altar of speed. We sacrifice those things at our peril, in my opinion. Doesn't mean, again, that you can't do quick and dirty tactics, but I feel like, the insight is still critical. I would say that, right? I'm a planner, but I feel like that's so important.
A great insight is at the core of any brilliant piece of marketing, whatever format it ends up taking. So I think, that goes back nicely to why understanding consumers' needs matter, and it's the insight that helps you bring those different needs together, whether it's functional, social, and emotional. You go, right, that's the bit of wisdom that's going to inspire something brilliant in terms of an idea and then a piece of content that we're going to produce around that idea. So I am a big fan of the insight, always have been. Very hard to define, very hard to find, but my goodness, when you do, wonderful things generally happen afterwards.
I would say the same about ideas. I remember back in the day in agencies, people used to reverently or reveringly talk about, is it an idea or is it not an idea? And ideas would come from insights. So I look at a lot of the output that's served up to us in whatever screen we're looking at. And I think we've lost the ability to really bring ideas to life. And I think, as an optimist, I would say I think that there is a huge opportunity in these new channels to really start building big, persuasive, engaging ideas. Would you agree, Lucy?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I do agree. And I don't know, I think I'm actually fascinated. I don't know if it's allowed, but I'd love to ask Alex a question, because in my experience, it's quite hard to sell an organization on the idea of ratcheting up to look at the world through the marketing lens, right? Because in my experience, the companies that do marketing well get out of their own heads, and they manage to talk about their brand in its position in the world, sometimes even beyond its own category. And I imagine that's quite hard to sell at a C-suite level, where, of course, all focuses are on, the product and very, very stuck in your own world, aren't you, when you're running a very important big company? And I'd love to hear from Alex, like how do you sell those crazy out of the box ideas, which I think is easy for the agency to come up with, but it's quite hard for it to be pushed through internally. Again, in my experience,
it's really hard, Lucy. Really, really hard. No, it's a great question, because it is really hard, and I think it's the fun and sometimes the challenging part about being in marketing on the client side is, you can get excited by a great idea, but then you're like, how do I sell this up the firm and to people who are very far removed from what we do for a living, and probably have a limited time to engage with what you're about to present. And how do you get them excited about something that feels rather intangible in a world where they're probably thinking about very rational things most of the day? And I think it is. I think it is a skill, and I think it's what makes good marketers good marketers. And I think, the way that I've always approached it is really anchoring the idea in a strategy. I think if you just go in with a great idea, however much you love it and however passionate you are about it, it just feels like it's this wonderful thing floating in the ether, but it's not anchored in anything that actually matters to the business. At the end of the day, the reason we do what we do, whether it's build brands or create pieces of marketing content, is because we're trying to actually drive more revenue for the firm and impact the bottom line. So I think if you can start by really anchoring a great idea in a really clear strategy on what are we trying to achieve, what's the commercial goal, who are we speaking to, and then the insight word, what is it that we understand about this target audience that we actually think if we engage with that, we can really get them to change their perception, ultimately change their behavior. And I think you can get everybody to sort of understand that why. Then you go, because of this is why we think this is a good idea. You are much more likely, I think, to get engagement and support and sometimes trust. I mean, there are times in my career where I'd say I probably didn't have everybody around the table going, we think this is a great idea, but you know what? It sounds like it's anchored in really solid commercial strategy, and I trust you because you're a marketer, and I trust the agency because they're experts at what they do, that you wouldn't propose something that's completely mad if you didn't think it was going to go and work. And I'll let you run with it. And, funnily enough, and probably no surprise to you guys, the few times when that's happened has been when something really great has gone into market. And, there was one time in a previous job where we were trusted on something that everybody was a little bit like, feels a bit crazy. But I think the general belief was, well, look, the worst that can happen is nothing actually moves. It's not going to do us any harm. There's no reputational risk here. But it went on. It was hugely successful and won an Effie. And I kind of go, that's when the sort of the magic of what we do comes to bear, and it's the fun and the challenge of being in marketing. But we can't lose, because it's hard to sell an idea. We should never lose that desire to want great ideas. And I mean, I get most excited in my day when I'm sitting with my agency partners and suddenly there is this great idea and it's like, this is why I do what I do and why I love what I do. You can see the potential in this idea and how it's going to move us forward commercially as a brand, and that's when it's magic.
Final question to you both, starting with Lucy. What would you like to see happen in marketing that would make it more rewarding for us all?
Oh, great question. I think marketing has a marketing problem, Jorian. I think as marketeers, it's kind of funny and ironic to realize that, in that I spend way too much of my time justifying my existence. I know my clients also find it quite hard to get respect in the boardroom. And I think enough is enough because actually when done well, as we've talked about on this podcast, marketing is a real contributor to the bottom line. And I wonder if there's some ground to be gained by recognizing that, throwing our shoulders back and agreeing a common set of vernacular so that we can all talk as marketeers in the same language, because I think we're often made fun of, as sort of the fluffy department. And it's often because we're just all using different terms and everyone thinks their terms are the ones to use, and mission, vision, values. It's all in value prop. I mean, if I had a pound or a dollar for every time someone used the word value prop and meant a different thing, I would be very rich. I wouldn't have to work anymore. And why is that? Like, why can't we just as accountants have a set way of looking at the world? Why can't we as marketeers establish like, oh, okay, when we say value prop, this is what we mean. And I think if we could do that, it would go a long way to legitimizing what is, I think, very undervalued art that contributes to a business when done well.
I agree with Lucy wholeheartedly. I think marketing has got a marketing problem, and I don't know if this is probably too bold. I think marketing has been the source of that problem. I think we need to be proud of what we do. We need to be business partners first, marketers second. So we need to understand our business, we need to understand our clients, and we need to anchor our marketing strategies and our marketing ideas in that commercial understanding. That's how you actually start to speak the language that everybody in the company speaks. So I think we've got to stand up and demonstrate the fact that we are strategic business partners. To Lucy's point, which I vehemently agree with as well. We're not a cost center, we're a revenue center, but we have to prove that. And that's why I think, what I would love us to see is to get more common language and more common methodologies around measurement and how you actually measure the success of marketing to the revenue dollar generated. It's hard. It's always going to be hard, but I think measuring anything is actually hard. But I think if we can get some commonality around that, I think harness the power of a lot more data and maybe a little bit of Gen AI in there that can help us analyze this data more robustly and at greater speed than we can do right now. And we can really start to demonstrate what we know sort of intuitively to be true, that is, when we do something great in marketing, great commercial outcomes happen. We just got to be able to demonstrate that and put it into dollars and cents. And I think if we can do that, then, marketing will be seen as a value strategic partner, will be seen as a revenue center. And that's the mission that, as a CMO and in my new role, particularly, I'm on here with the team. And, I'm excited. And it's a great place to do that, because I think there's a lot of advocates and a lot of support for marketing. We've got to lean into that support and pay it back. So that's what I'd love to see.
What a wonderful conversation. Clearly the energy and enthusiasm you both have. You both implied that you've been in this role, in your roles or in this world for a long time, and clearly the energy has not diminished whatsoever. Thank you so much for coming on to Good Things Happen and sharing your insights and observations. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Jorian. Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks for having me.
Citigroup, Citi and Register are not affiliated and are independent from each other. The speakers' views are their own and may not necessarily reflect the views of Citi or any of its affiliates. All opinions are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. The expressions of opinion are not intended to be a forecast of future events or a guarantee of future results.